of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll get started with approval of the minutes for the December 6th, 2018 regular meeting.
I'll move approval of the minutes from Thursday, November 6th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next is approval of purchase orders for December 20th, 2018.
I'll move approval of purchase orders for December 20th, 2018 in the amount of $8,328.80.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is approval of accounts payable for December 13th, 2018.
I'll move approval of accounts payable December 13th, 2018, $311,594.27.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Approval of accounts payable for December 20th, 2018.
I'll move approval of accounts payable for December 20, 2018 in the amount of $322,121.51.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We'll move to approval of manual checks for December 14th, 2018, and it says December 13th, 2018.
I'll move approval of manual checks in the amount of $200,084.82, and it's dated December 13th, 2018.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Manual checks for December 20th, 2018.
I'll move approval of manual checks for December 20th, 2018, total amount $117,335.51.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next up is approval of payroll for December 13th, 2018.
I'll move approval of payroll December 13th, 2018, $263,781.60.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's it. Any announcements?
Do not have any announcements this evening.
All right, just quick thing. I know there's stuff that's going to have executive session, so I'm going to get through everything prior to that, and then we'll have the executive session at the very end so the public can stay for everything that's not executive session. So we'll move to public comment. David Tabb.
Good evening, David Tabb, Jefferson County resident. Again, I applaud the County Commission for at least having some evening meetings. It does make it easier on a lot of us. I also see in your first item here, requesting partnership Region 9 on the Chesapeake Bay implementation, grant application, discussion, and action. This is an issue that Danny Lutz has brought before you several times and asking you guys for money. So I guess now that you're going to get a grant, or try to, now you're going to participate. You could have been participating a lot before, because the Conservation District does a lot of good in the county, and we would have had a lot more runoff if they hadn't already been doing what they've done, and they're spending millions. So just keep that in mind when you get to that. And I just got a notice from Chief Justice Wilkes, 23rd Judicial Circuit Court, that he will be retiring January 31st, 2019, effective. This is another person that took charge on me, and I hope that I've taken charge on them. I also have the USDA of Interior Fish and Wildlife. You guys haven't been doing a very good job taking care of our endangered species. Imagine that. There are fines involved. So you'll be hearing about that. Also, and how do we know that endangered species is here? Because there was a study, it's right here, and the Lyle Tab Farm was involved in it. The isopods are here, endangered species. And with the Roxwell deal, they didn't do their homework. They didn't do their application right. This will come back on you and everybody else that was involved. The human being is not an endangered species yet. So you're allowed to kill us. But it's against the law to kill an isopod. So, with that, I am a spokesman for them. I know where they are. I know where their habitat is. And there's being studies right now being done to make sure they're still there. And if they've been harmed, so will you. So, you guys really need to get on the ball on things that you're supposed to be doing. I have to, and I even get punished when I do it right. By the way, I have 2 appeals at the Air Quality Board, and I have a rewrite on the TEMA permit. Y'all have a nice evening.
Nancy Gregory?
Hi. Okay. I have a cold. I'm actually curious about what's going on with the JCDA and the appointments, but I'm just hoping to find out. I can't stay tonight, though, because I'm not feeling well. So I'll find out from other people. So I'm here really to talk about Rockwell again and again and again. There's many good reasons not to have Rockwell in Jefferson County, starting with the deceitful way that the company got here. Their plan had to be fast-tracked and covered up by the unethical, dishonest, and possibly corrupt officials, or it never would have gotten this far. The site is terrible. The EPA says not to build a school within 2 miles of heavy industry, and the WVDEP says to keep it 1/2 mile distance. And Rockwell would be 0.4 miles from North Jefferson, with other schools, daycares, and Head Start less than 2 miles. We don't need any more pollution of water, air, and land, the truck traffic, the gas pipeline, and we certainly don't need to fund the Rockwell business with our tax dollars. This project needs to stop. We can get a lot more jobs from light industry. Denmark is phasing out its use of fossil fuels, but has no problem using frack gas and coal to power its business in economically stressed states like Mississippi and now West Virginia. My newest concern, there's no real knowledge about the amount and content of what will actually be flushed into CTUB's treatment plant and what effect it might have on Evetts Run and the Shenandoah and Potomac rivers. We are not obligated to take Rockwell's industrial waste. I hope that the permit modification with the DEP is withdrawn. If you have any power in that, I hope that you will use it. We're at a crossroads here. I keep thinking about Flint, Michigan, and one person made a mistake and diverted water and poisoned thousands of people with lead. Well, I hope this is not going to be the story with Rockwell and Jefferson County. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Michael Tobin? How you doing, man?
Excuse me, I'm long-winded. Good evening. Mike Tolbert speaking as a private citizen. The Charlestown Post Office is 96 years old. A joint effort by all elected leaders should be mounted to secure federal funding, I believe, to replace it with a modern, easily accessible building, one that has no steps, built at the same site with enclosed parking. The current post office was created or constructed in 1922 on the site formerly occupied by the jail that housed John Brown and 6 of his 20 raiders in 1859. The new building would recreate the outside facade of that jailhouse, thus returning Charlestown's historic streetscape back to its original flow. The jail cell where John Brown wrote his famous writings and gave many of his famous interviews would be recreated as a national museum, and I suggest naming the building the John A. Copeland Jr. and Shields Green Federal Post Office, or Copeland Green for short. Two of the raiders held at the jail. That the museum would also recognize Jefferson County as one of the first locations for rural free mail delivery service, particularly rural free mail delivery to farmers. And as importantly, it would tell the story of West Virginia's first, possibly the nation's first female mail carrier. The second proposal involves the existing courthouse and county buildings. I propose a modern office complex using, again, the facade of the existing buildings, including our 147-year-old courthouse, which is the county's fourth courthouse. This new complex would be designed to last another 147 years. And it would have a restored courthouse, which would become the county's fifth courthouse. The complex would be your legacy. It would include new courtrooms, space for county offices, including teen court. My mother wanted me to make sure I said that. And a skywalk to the Judicial Center. The two courtrooms, the one where the John Brown Raider treason trials took place, and the one where the Battle for Blair Mountain treason trials took place, would be reconstructed for both historical preservation reasons and for historical tourism revenue. A large public parking structure with entrances on all four sides that's hidden away would also be available. And that basically is the end of my speech. My presentation, the last 3 pages, you might find interesting. Page 9 shows the county's 4 courthouses, 2 of which still exist. And page 10.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll certainly look over this. This is a lot of information. So,
Thank you.
if you want to come on again on the agenda, we don't talk, but if you want more time, perhaps, just make that agenda request.
Okay, I didn't know that. I was practicing to get through in 3 minutes, so I was reading everything.
Just so the public is aware, if you think you need more than 3 minutes, just make an agenda request to the county commission office, and then we can interact with you too. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
The form is on our website.
Yeah, the form.
As well as the polls.
Ruth Hatcher.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all. And I would just like, since it is the holiday season, I would like to say, Santa said, protect children and don't pollute children. This is a picture of North Jefferson Elementary School. So that's the gift that we want for our children and our community. And I don't know whether I had said this at this meeting or not, but at the public hearing on the water permit modification, I said that Rockwell should take a lesson from Microsoft and step away from karst topography. In 2010, an 8x4 sinkhole was a deal killer for Microsoft's $500 million new data center. Even though 90% of the design work was already done for Christiansburg, Virginia, Microsoft stepped away from Montgomery County and they went to Mecklenburg County for their data center because of the karst topography. So that's a lesson I think that we should all learn. And they are considered geologically challenged, which is what we are, geologically challenged, and we should keep that in mind when bringing any business to the area. Also, there is a new article, there's on January 22nd on PBS, there is a new program talking about how the coal miners were really not protected, and that for the past 20 years, federal regulators and the mining industry knew that toxic silica dust in coal mines was leading to severe and fatal lung disease. But no administration then or since has imposed direct and tougher regulation of silica dust. This is another example of how industries and our government have been aware of health problems and they squash it from the public. Just like the opioid problem, just like the asbestos problem, and tobacco problem, and our society continues to ignore science-based evidence. And this is very troublesome. And Rockwell, according to EU Today News, Gary Cartwright is saying this is just the next best asbestos. In 2013, Dutch TV program, there was a Dr. Drent, and she came on and said it's pretty much the same effects as asbestos. So we need to look into this farther before we have this terrible health crisis in our own community. But it saddens me very much to hear the coal miners, again, the industry knew about it, the government knew about it for 20 years and failed to protect the coal miners. It's just another example of how public safety is not taken seriously in this country. And we're sick and tired of it, because you have to look at real facts. Please don't ignore this. Thank you.
Good evening. Eleanor Finn on behalf of the Jefferson County League of Women Voters. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your service to the community, for the time you put in. It's not only coming to these meetings, it's getting through the entire packet and doing all of your other liaison responsibilities. So thank you for doing that. Thank you also for setting up a meet and greet in January. I hope that that will work out, and for already including a Budget 101 in your calendar. I hope you will also continue to ask the Ethics Commission for in-person training in Jefferson County. That makes such a difference. You know that people pack the room, they ask a lot of good questions, and because we will be having a lot of new people on various commissions and authorities, etc., it's good for them to hear what their responsibilities are. And appropriate holiday greetings to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Linda Ballard.
Good evening. My name is Linda Downing Ballard, and I'm a resident of Charlestown. And I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to publicly thank everyone who supported us on the removal of the plaque from the county courthouse. Our efforts started here at the commissioners' meeting, and after the vote at last meeting, we did not have the opportunity to thank everyone publicly who supported us in that effort. So we certainly want to do that, and our campaign remained positive throughout, and we ended with a positive outcome. And this win most certainly was in memory of the legacy of our enslaved ancestors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no one else on my list. Does anybody else wish to make a comment? Just raise your hand. If, sir? Please come up and just speak into it and state your name, please.
Bill Weston of Summit Point. Regarding the plaque, I appreciate the concerns of the commission and in their vote. But as a U.S. Navy veteran, I think all veterans took a hit. Confederate veterans were certified as U.S. veterans in 1957 and should be treated as such. So is there some solution to meet the needs of the previous speaker, but also to honor the Confederate veterans as you do all veterans? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that wishes to make the comment? If not, we'll move on. So, number 1, Mary Sell, Water Advisory Committee. Request to partner with Region 9 on a Chesapeake Bay implementation grant application.
Good evening, Chairman and County Commissioners. My name is Mary Sell, and I come before you part of the Water Advisory Committee. We have been in existence since 2008, and we are in, one of the reasons I got involved with it was as a farmer with the Chesapeake Bay Plan and what was coming down on the farmers with the executive order, Obama's executive order, and the reductions in nutrients, phosphorus, and sediments, and what has been an opportunity, I think, for the county and for farmers to improve their best management practices and homeowners, and especially in this county for when we're all related by karst topography, to know that when you improve the water quality in your own area, in your own backyard, that you're improving the water quality. For downstream for Chesapeake Bay, you're improving the water quality in your own backyard for your own citizens. And so there have been a lot of good things have come out from the Chesapeake Bay with money, but now we are facing, we're getting ready for the WIP 3, which is the Watershed Implementation Plan Part 3. We've gone through Part 1 and Part 2. This will be now drafted next year, and then it will be implemented or drafted in April by the West Virginia DEP, and it will go final in August, and that will set total maximum daily loads for the county from 2019 that you have to meet by 2025 to improve the Chesapeake Bay. So the Water Advisory Committee was approached by Matt Pennington, and it's I misnamed it. It's not a partnership. They are a technical consultant. I felt like we needed more people. We've lost some people who have moved, resigned, passed on, and to get a clear mission statement. This proposal, it does not cost the county any money, although we would at some point in time like to come back and get a minimal money to get a website going to help promote it. It would have to be approved by both Region 9 and EPA, and then it is an in-kind grant. It would be to hold some stakeholders meeting, and I think to do something positive. We have a lot of people who are interested in water quality, and maybe this is a way that we can bring them together and talk about what we can do countywide and educate and talk about what's coming up with the Chesapeake Bay, and would help revitalize the Water Advisory Committee, give it a mission, give it some better structure, which I think we need. And some more bodies on it as well. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
I actually called Matt Pennington today and talked to him. I'm on the Region 9 Air Quality Chesapeake Bay Committee. We had a meeting on Monday. So I talked to Matt about this today, and I'm comfortable approving. I'm glad to see the Water Advisory Committee becoming I think the problem has always been that, we don't have a lot of administrative assistance because you don't have it to give you. Right. And so I'm glad that Matt is willing to help. I talked to him about this too. I was surprised to see it on the agenda, frankly. That's why I called him. So I was glad to see.
I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to give you a heads up about it.
That's okay. That's not a problem. I just wanted to be sure that Matt was okay. He'll be doing probably some of the work, a good bit of work, maybe all the work. I'm not sure.
Well, he came to me and suggested it.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So that's great. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We've had 2 grants, and when we came back to him for the 3rd Stream Partner grant with West Virginia DEP, they suggested that or he and Matt, Jennifer Power, DEP, suggested to Matt, and again, I apologize for not, I talked to him, and I thought he had talked to you, but I talked to him today, and he said he had talked to you, so I was going to call you as well. That we do this because we thought it was an underutilized advisory committee. We have a lot of expertise right now. We have one of the karst experts in the country and in this area, and we have, I don't know that he'll be doing all the work, but he's going to help us with the stakeholder. The consultant and he'll help us write the RFP, and then it'll be the consultant, but it'll be a commission product. The report will be a commission product. Don't know if that answers.
Well, the only other question, yeah, that's fine. And the only other question I have is the non-federal share, the $10,000 non-federal share. Where's that coming from?
That's coming from the hourly rate of the people, Bob Denton, myself. We can put it in, not at the West Virginia volunteer rate, but we can put it at our hourly rate that we charge. This is per mat, so.
So it's basically the value of your volunteer hours as experts?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not the West Virginia rate for volunteer. It's as exactly as experts.
Right.
Volunteer as experts. So.
All right. I was just concerned that you were going to ask the county commission for it, but then I saw down here that this was not a funding request.
No, it's not a funding request.
I was curious as to where that 10,000 would come from.
Well, and I think this is a very good idea. Of course, I'm well acquainted with some of the moving farm side, but I think our citizens, Harry homeowner, needs to play their part too, and that's a harder audience to reach in many ways. You've got homeowners association, some folks that are not with any structure, but I feel like people over funds, and farmers are criticized for over. I think we need to cover all the bases.
Just a general question. You say this is for, what year is this programmed out to be?
This is to start in 2019 and to run sort of parallel to what's going on with the Chesapeake Bay, West Virginia DEP's WIP, Watershed Implementation Plan Part 3 development. That will be developing in the background concurrently the plan for the 8 counties. And every state, or the 6 states in the District of Columbia are required to do it. And in West Virginia is one of the 6 states, and there are 8 counties that are involved in it, considered backstop, that we have a direct drain into the Potomac River and affected Chesapeake Bay. So this grant is to run for next year, next spring, and through the summer to do an educational, I think would be a great wrap-up at the county fair to, but it's to run through next year. If we get the funding, if we're approved. We haven't been approved yet. But having the commission's consent to go forward, I think would help us in the approval process. Does that answer your question?
Close enough.
The only thing I have is, to Commissioner Tabb's point, I don't fertilize my lawn. I actually look forward to it dying so I don't have to cut it ever again. So it didn't happen this year, unfortunately. But
you're right about that.
Yeah. I guess that's the old saying, water is life. I think we all want clean drinking water and so forth. I do a lot of fishing on the bay, so I'll absolutely support this, and hopefully we get the funding.
Hopefully we get the funding.
Yeah.
And thanks for your work on this.
Oh, thank you.
I know it's voluntary mostly. I mean, I'm glad to see, you're going to be getting some kind of a reward.
So, thank you. I think the reward is that we all come together and think about the downstream, always downstream, and that we're all in it together. And I think to your point, Commissioner Tabb, we have run into a few homeowners associations that have regulations against certain regulations. They want the lawn cut a certain length. They don't allow, or they do not permit rain barrels. And there's some of that legacy homeowner associations that maybe we can get them to change some of their regulations and be part of the solution.
They don't want any dandelions and all that kinds of stuff. I will make a motion to approve the Jefferson County Water Advisory Committee's partnership grant application with Region 9 for the Chesapeake implementation grant.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, and I'll keep in touch with you all on it as we proceed. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Stephanie, number 2. Since it's a personnel issue, is any of that need to be an executive session? Okay, so it looks like 2, 3, and 4 executive session items. Let's
Not
move-
two. Well, I don't think 2 needs to be an executive
Okay,
session.
so I
It's just a
thought you said
salary
it did.
increase. I thought you were talking about number 3.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, maybe I'm half asleep and I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, number 2
It's
doesn't.
late.
It's just a salary increase, so it won't. That doesn't need to be an executive
Okay,
session.
so we'll move to number 2. Rob Glenn, President of the Jefferson County Farmland Protection Board. Farmland Protection Board, Executive Director, Compensation.
Good evening. I'm here, if you, I've a request for consent or a motion, we're not quite sure. The board has taken the action pursuant to its bylaws to increase the salary of the director, or if you'd like to propose an increase in the director's salary to the amount that you see in the motion that that put forward on the agenda. The action was taken pursuant to our bylaws, which to me clearly state that the board has the power to prescribe personnel guidelines, establish salary levels, to hire employees. All personnel promotions, salary increases, suspension, dismissal shall be authorized by the board, etc. I've been working closely with Commissioner Tabb, who, as you know, is on the board. And she recommended, and I think it was a good idea, that I come before the commission to seek, again, approval, consent, not quite sure. I think transparency is also always a good idea. We're dealing here with taxpayer dollars. Structurally, as I understand it, Liz Wheeler, who's our director, has a grade within the county system and receives a county paycheck, although the board reimburses the county for that salary out of our fund. So we are paying her salary. And this increase, of course, would come out of our budget. Liz has never had, to my research shows, she's never had a merit increase. She's had a series of COLA increases. And notwithstanding that, her job has increased substantially between the time she was hired in 2011 and now. For example, she originally started with 24 easements. We've now essentially doubled that, in the number of easements in conservation. We regularly deal with the federal government. The federal government has vastly increased its oversight and, as you know, as is typical of the federal government, one may say, its requirements to get federal money. These are competitive bids we're out for. We want, the board has determined it's a good idea to go get those federal funds. We have to compete with other counties for those funds. Liz has brought in more than $4 million worth of funds for us, which are matching funds which allow us to put more prime farmland under easement. As a personal note, I think it's a critical function of the board. Jefferson County is one of the few counties in West Virginia who has a tremendous development pressures, as you know, from all sides, residential, commercial, industrial. And on the other flip side, we have some of the most valuable farmland in the country here. So I view our role as vital and valuable to the county and, frankly, to the United States and the agriculture industry. And I think Liz plays a big part in that. The job description that she requires, again, it doesn't require a advanced degree, but it certainly requires a college degree, a background in conservation, which Liz has, a background in fundraising, which is critical, which Liz has, an understanding of how to lobby, she lobbies both federal and our state partners. She's integral, she's a large part of the community in addition to that. So I don't want to take too much of your time because that essentially summarizes what I've put in my motion, and I tried to give you a little background there. Again, the critical piece to me is that the board's made this decision. The farmland board's made this decision. It's coming out of our money. We think we can, cover that. I think Liz, to begin with, was again, this is a personal opinion, but was underpaid to begin with when she was hired in 2011. And this essentially puts her on a par with people who do what she does, for example, in the private industry. I've given you the figure here, the latest from the Land Trust Alliance. The median salary for a land trust director was $84,000. So we're well below that.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What kind of, so she's not on the county pay structure.
She's on our payroll.
Okay, so how does that factor in the merit increase that we instituted? Is that going to throw it? I guess
No,
what's the?
They are on our payroll, but we're reimbursed from them, so we don't pay for it. But we get reimbursed, but she runs through our payroll, which is why he's here asking permission, because it needs to be in our minutes to reflect the increase.
So I guess what is the increase? Like percentage-wise?
Yeah, you're going to ask me to do math, right? Okay, sorry.
Roughly.
And he's a lawyer, and that's difficult. We already know that one.
Okay, she's at 40. She's at 47, and we're asking 60. So what is that? Commissioner, please help me, Terry.
No, that you've explained it.
Okay.
We don't have to get down to
was
the
it five?
percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have an accountant, MBA in finance, and I can't do it. So.
Well, and I want to explain, too, that it may be confusing to the public, that the Farmland Protection Board and all its purchases of farmland the funding comes from the transfer tax that is collected when property is sold in the county. And that's what we used for our operational budget, which includes salary, Liz's salary, and all the miscellaneous things come with running an office and travel and so forth. Plus, the majority of it goes to funding easements, the matching grants that we need to match with federal funds or some special grant that will help us put easements on more farmland. So she's in a unique position. She's a county employee, but the money that funds her position comes from the board, and it is our understanding the board controls her salary.
She's not a county employee. She's just on our payroll. Yes. Okay. She's just on our payroll, but that doesn't make her a county employee.
All right.
Because
Well,
the board
then
controls her employment.
I misspoke.
So,
then.
yeah.
Okay.
As far like one thing, Commissioner Tabb's point, is taxpayer money. I mean, transfer taxes are weird in West Virginia because 100% of those transfer taxes are paid by the seller. Most states it's 50-50. So it's almost an indirect tax as people leave or buy another home. So just to reiterate where those things are coming from, they need to change that also at the legislature. But
Well, I just wanted to make it clear it wasn't the taxes that are levied by the county commission.
It doesn't come from county commission revenue.
Right.
well, do we dictate that rate though? Is essentially the question. Do we dictate the transfer tax rate?
We have the ability to increase it, but we never have.
We said it though. Could we say, well, we want to reduce the transfer tax, or is there a minimum state threshold? Now that we've come to this discussion, I'm just curious if you know.
I don't know. I know that the legislature increased the you could charge, and we did not take advantage of that increase. I know that our neighbors in Berkeley took advantage of that.
Well, I mean, that's another reason why 100% seller. I mean, you're just slapping your existing residents with more taxes. So.
Well, I'm going to move to grant permission that Liz Wheeler, Director of the Farmland Protection Board, salary be set at $60,000 per year, effective 1/2019.
Second.
Any discussion?
I had a question. Is there any other benefit cost? Or what?
Yes. Yeah, we reimburse for the benefits too.
Yeah, so
Does that increase the benefits?
because she is on our payroll, she receives all of the county benefits as well.
Put that in the motion.
No, it'll just increase. I would add to the motion that it is reimbursed by the Farmland Protection Board.
Well, I will add that to my motion and the funds for the salary are reimbursed to the county from the Farmland Protection Board. Is that okay, Jessica? Can you make that sound reasonable?
Further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, sir. All right. So 3 and 4 is going to be executive session. Let's move to 5, appointment of fire chief to Jefferson County Property Safety Enforcement Agency.
So we had been considering appointing Alan Kaiser, but I spoke to him this afternoon, and he didn't want to take something away from one of the chiefs in the county, so as long as there's another fire chief in the running, he won't do it, or is withdrawing his name.
So Chief Kogel?
Is the person, yes, so we need to appoint him.
He's still the chief on the mountain right now, currently,
Yes.
correct? Do we know if he's going to still be the chief on the mountain in the short term, or?
He said that he's going to stay.
Okay, so in that case, and he was the only applicant, I move we appoint Chief Earl Kogel to Fire Chief to the Jefferson County Property Safety Enforcement Agency.
I'll second it. If nobody else knows.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
Motion dies 3-2. So we'll have to re-advertise that. All right, we'll move on. 6, set date, time, and location for the first regular meeting of 2019. I'm guessing it's probably going to be January 3rd.
9:30 a.m. unless you decide something differently.
Do you need a formal motion, or?
Yeah, we usually do make a formal motion.
Okay, I move we set the first regular meeting of 2019 on January 3rd, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
Second.
Any discussion?
I heard rumors that was going to be our night that we met the public or whatever.
Legislative?
It's the
17th, okay.
or the 14th.
Yeah, I thought it was the 3rd.
It's the 14th. It's 14th. It's a Monday.
That's why I wanted to make
So
sure.
it's not? Okay.
Not
So
what?
it's-
It is the 14th.
14th is when the,
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. And the
All right.
legislators are on at 1:30 in the afternoon.
or are we meeting with legislators?
At 1:30.
Okay,
yes.
so that's fine, all right.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move to county administrator reports.
So, the first one I offered to do for the sheriff, to be here, and if you recall, when he appointed Ronald Fletcher as the chief deputy, he indicated that he was going to offer him an additional raise after the initial period. That period is up, so he is, that period is up, so he's requesting to provide that additional to Fletcher for being, he's now appointing them as the chief deputy, and he's going to increase his salary to $250 per month. Which I believe is $6,000.
Another addition issue.
It's another $3,000, that's what it is, for a total of $6,000. That's what it is, yes.
He says no additional funding is needed.
There's no additional funding, and in fact, it is actually below his budgetary funding, so, or he's coming in below his budget.
I'll move that Ronald Fletcher be appointed as Chief Deputy for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office with a $250 monthly increase in compensation effective on December 30th, 2018.
Second?
Any discussion?
I hate to be picky, but I know we pay every 2 weeks. Does that cause any problem with it being 1 month, $250?
It doesn't, no.
Anything further? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's move to update on requests for information from Rockwell and various state agencies. So let's just go down the line.
Okay, so a while ago, you had asked me to write a couple of different letters. One of them was to the Division of Highways, and I actually just received that letter. I would have put it in your packet, but I didn't have it in time to put in the packet. And you requested the routes that Rockwell would be using. And so it's a short letter, so I'll just read you the relevant portions. It says, traffic associated with the industrial site is to utilize primarily West Virginia 115 and West Virginia 9, as well as County Route 9/68. Those vehicles, as well as any other motor vehicles, are permitted to operate along any division of highways roadways, provided the size or weight does not exceed allowable loads or dimensions. The gross vehicle weight limit along West Virginia 9 and West Virginia 115 is 80,000 pounds. It is our understanding that traffic associated with the industrial site is expected to arrive, depart throughout the day. And that they thank us for writing, and they tell us to reach out to Lee Thorne, the District 5 engineer/manager, if we have any additional questions. They copied Todd Hooker at the West Virginia Development Office.
And this will be posted for the public to easily
Yeah.
access.
We'll put it under
If you can take notes of that fact, you're pretty
Yeah.
good.
We'll put it under our Rockville information page.
I don't know what Route 9/68 is, so I'll look that up.
68, I know, goes out to Western.
I know, but didn't you say it was 9/68?
County Route 9/68.
Yeah, 9/68, and I know road
Near
names,
road,
but
yes.
not that number.
Curry Road exit, isn't it? Off of Route 9?
I'm not sure.
I think that's that.
Well, I'll find out. Curiosity.
I'll figure it out and let you know. You directed me to contact Rockville concerning tuft falls. If we could expect to experience them here, how often? Is there anything that they can do to prevent them? And I received a response from Leslie McLaren. He says it is correct that they have experienced wool tufts occasionally, though infrequently falling in areas near our facility, in Wayne, sometimes in Milton. When discovered and retrieved, we analyze the material to determine as precisely as possible its source, for example, at what point in the production process it resulted. This gives a first indication of where to focus efforts to remedy the situation. In Wales, for example, we're implementing a robust process to investigate and mitigate against tuft falls. We haven't, and she says we haven't experienced any tuft falls there recently. That notwithstanding, we do not expect this to be an issue in Ranson, as we will use different emissions control technologies and filters in key points throughout the production process. In short, we believe it would be highly unlikely that neighbors to the Ranson facility would experience wool tufts at all.
So maybe, but we don't think so.
And then you
This
had
will
asked-
also be posted on our website?
Mhm,
Yeah, okay.
Under the Rockville
Mhm,
thing on
yeah.
on the JCC website, all right.
And then, and I've got some staff out tomorrow, so it may not be posted until after the Christmas holiday. And then you had asked about the emergency process and what made the Jefferson Utilities connection to Rockville an emergency, and I was able to determine that on my own. And it actually comes from the IJDC and the enabling legislation in the West Virginia Code. So the IJDC has the ability to determine that a project is an emergency project, and that is defined in the code as essential to economic development of the area of the state, and that the area will not be developed if construction is not commenced immediately. The IJDC gave that designation to the Rockville facility and the JUI service. And once they receive that designation, then the code section exempts them from certain requirements of the convenience and necessity process. So that designation came from the infrastructure, the IJDC is the Infrastructure Jobs and Development Council. So that is why they were considered an emergency project. I don't think it's emergency as we would define. That's all I have.
And I'm sure you haven't heard from West Virginia DEP.
I have not. They did acknowledge that they had received our questions, and they said that they would respond as soon as they were able to gather the information. So, and they responded pretty quickly to the initial request. They said, we've received it, and we will be in touch with you.
I think that was some good information, though, right there. So it addressed at least some of the concerns that were brought up. Discuss topics for legislative summit.
So this is you?
Okay, so there's two, Rockville and Mark Train. We've all been part of the Mark Train email chain and maybe going to the meetings, calling into the meetings that have been in Harper's Ferry. I have some serious concerns about Mark Train seeing some of that data. The ridership has been down significantly over the past decade or so. 40%, I think, was it, or something.
Well, and other trains too have decreased, but not to the same degree.
Even Maryland. Yeah. Maryland stations, Point of Rocks and Brunswick saw nasty decreases also. So.
Yeah, I listened in on that meeting. I couldn't listen to all.
So that's,
Yeah, I attended the meeting in Harper's Ferry on the Mark Train funding committee.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was, they were discussing the ride. Maryland also depends on the ridership of West Virginians to be able to continue the service. Without the West Virginia riders, they're going to see a reduction in service. And so it's going to affect not just West Virginia, but it's also going to affect Maryland at some point, we believe. So.
Well, it was interesting to see that data. I mean, you know, you hear a lot of anecdotal stuff, but yeah, it was pretty, well, actually.
It is. How much it dropped.
yeah, I mean, I've ridden that train for quite some time prior years, and it was jam-packed. So I'm wondering, like, how they came to those conclusions, to tell you the truth.
Well, and I think part of the issue is that people telecommute now. I mean, there's one gentleman who sits on the committee who actually physically goes to work 2 days a week, and he telecommutes the other 3.
Yeah.
So, and that's just one person, and I think that's, you know, that's what technology's done for us.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's good for them, but bad for the transportation. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was also at the meeting, and Patsy's comment there, but they also indicated that since our, you know, from 40 years ago, gasoline prices seem high, but in the last 5 years, it's actually gone down. And I think people, you know, may be at the breaking point where they feel their car is cheaper than taking the train. And if the price goes up again, then you might see the riders.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that don't just commute to Maryland. Look at the people that commute to Virginia, and you know, so it's you know, there's more people are commuting, but not necessarily on the train.
Yeah, because the train doesn't go everywhere, unfortunately.
It doesn't go everywhere.
Even that,
Yeah, it's
they're doing
limited.
a marketing ploy too. I think $200,000 marketing list or something.
Yeah.
I mean, there are just people that don't have the option to get the train. I mean, how much?
Where they needed to
Yeah,
go.
so.
Yeah.
Well, and some folks have jobs that aren't 9 to 5. I mean, if you can't know you'll get done work in time to catch that last train home, then you're up the creek. That's why I know a lot of people, you know, drive themselves, because their work just is to stay late sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, just to be frank, I mean, this is going to be a hard sell in Charleston with some of that data. I mean, it's not going to be pretty, and especially if there's a budget crunch in Charleston or something this legislative session. I mean, that's definitely going to come up, and I don't know. It's just unfortunate, but serious concerns across the board with that.
A topic that I have is it was actually just something that we voted on, is for the property to be, and we ask for this every year,
Yeah.
the fire chief or his designee. So we
Yes.
could get a fire chief who may not have time to serve all the time, but could designate either his assistant chief or someone else from the fire company to attend in his presence, because we need the fire chief in order to be able to conduct business on property safety.
I agree. That's a good one.
Another thing, and I hate to bring this up, but I'm going to, I didn't know if there was any interest in pursuing the joint services fee legislation that we pursued several years ago. It gave us the ESA, but the part that we wanted.
I was going to actually. I'm
Okay.
glad. Yeah,
All right, I should have waited for you.
Well, no, I'm glad that's fine. No, because I think it's important that we ask about it anyway.
Can you
Yes.
elaborate for the public exactly what that
I
is?
can. So most counties have an ambulance authority and a fire board. And in those counties, they charge an ambulance fee and a fire fee, and the services are completely separate. Several years ago, we went to the legislature and requested that they create a dual services agency. There was a lot of pushback from the other volunteer fire departments in Charleston about that, because they felt like the county commission would be taking over their authority, or taking some of their authority away. However, our fire chiefs supported it. So we had drafted a bill that would have given us the ability to have a dual services agency and a dual service, so that you know, we wouldn't, right now we have to segregate and make sure that we're only spending the ambulance fee on ambulance services. However, the agency provides both, and all of our people are dual trained to respond to fire or medical emergencies as needed. So when the legislature went into session to address the concerns of the volunteers from around the state, they created the Emergency Services Agency just for Jefferson County, and they took out the ability to charge that dual fee. And there's a way to write it so that it would only apply to Jefferson County, so we wouldn't get that pushback from the other volunteers. And of course, I think we would ask our volunteer companies to write letters of support saying that this is what they want. And I know that there are other parts of the state who are looking to us. You know, dual service is the wave of the future. All of our surrounding jurisdictions are dual service agencies. It's more, you know, economically viable to provide both of the services. So there are other counties in West Virginia who are struggling to provide emergency services who are looking at the way that we do it. So we may getting that legislation passed, but as opposed to just collecting an ambulance fee, and no matter what the cost is, if it still stayed $35, it could be an emergency services fee. And that way the ESA would have the ability to use that money as they saw appropriate. If they needed something more on the fire side, they would be able to spend it there. If they needed something more on the EMS, they would be able to spend it there. So it doesn't automatically mean an increase of the fee. It just means that you're more flexible in your ability to spend it.
Yeah, but it's going to parlay into increased fees. And it's going to expand the scope of government as well. So I don't think any one of us doesn't want a strong fire and EMS system. But what's going to happen is you're going to get two fees, your taxes are going to get raised, and now that you have both fees that are probably raised, you can look at the general budget, you can see the allocation of your existing tax dollars. So other taxes you pay, property, etc. Those current existing taxes are being used to fund a large portion of fire and EMS in the county. The fire departments also get to keep ambulance billing, which is a large portion of money that most counties don't let them do. So just when you're listening to this, just understand that it's going to be tax increases, and your current taxes are going to be taken away from fire and EMS and used elsewhere. So just one thing to think of.
Well, I don't agree with that analysis, but I would like to explore the possibility of having some flexibility in the fee. I don't think any of us can predict the future and what our needs will be, but I can see that changes are coming. You know, our volunteers are great, but they've all got to work, and they can't be there to respond all the time. And they've asked for our help, and you know, look at our budget. We've got to come up with some other ways to fund emergency services. I'd at least like to have that tool to explore.
I have no interest in expanding government or definitely raising taxes. Those are the only changes that are going to occur. So I have no interest in looking into that.
I just want to say I concur with Jane, but I also want to point out that one of the costs of not funding is insurance. If we don't have a viable fire system, insurance is going to go up. You're still going to pay one way or the other.
And to that end, they are updating our ISO rating. They've actually contacted Jeff Polzinski at 911 to get that. So they're currently updating our ISO rating right now. I don't know if it'll be better or worse, but they're getting data from our 911 center to do that.
To Commissioner Lorenzetti's point, I mean, it will pay one way or the other. I'd like to see a legitimate comparison. So say you institute a fire fee or raise the ambulance fee, how much would we save on insurance? I want to quantify that. So if we're going to make the assumption that the insurance costs are so high because of staffing or whatever is not to where it needs to be or whatnot, I'm going to see a quantified number of the savings.
I think it'd be hard to figure out a definitive number because one of the issues they look at is how far are fire hydrants spaced, and there's a lot of the county that will eventually have fire hydrants, but a lot of the county not. So that's all worked in their calculation. The fire department's only part of their calculation, of course.
So it maybe essentially will not help the insurance in that regard because of the fire.
Well, I think we can have that researched and get somewhat of an idea of the differences. And, you know I add to Michelle's burdens, but she's very good at analyzing data, and hopefully with some other experts in the fire insurance, homeowners insurance, that can figure out, a value there.
Like the insurance company could do that quite quickly. Like if our current rate is this, and we do this, this, and this, how will our rate be affected? I mean,
Well, it depends on the location of the
underwriters
different
probably,
properties
so.
and so forth, but.
I just want to see if the majority of this board is seriously considering increasing fees and taxes to offset insurance costs. I think the public needs to be aware of what that offset is to benefit from the increased fee.
Well, I'm interested in pursuing it as well.
And did we want to have the unclaimed body legislation presented before them again, too?
Right, okay.
I hadn't heard anything about that lately, so I'm thinking hopefully things are good now, but we do need to clear up the ambiguity and.
We don't want to wait till there's another problem before we
Yes.
try to address it again.
And if you have any other topics, you can just email them. We'll get an agenda ready for the legislators. That's all I have.
Anything else? All right, so email Stephanie if you see anything else. All right, so
I did want to add one thing, just the gentleman and talked about the plaque today, and I just want to make a comment that I went to the commission office the other day, and a gentleman was irate about what I had done. He didn't realize who I was, so he was yelling at Sandy. I walked in up to her. He never gave me a chance to identify who I was. My only comment is I thought Sandy handled it very well. She was calm, courteous, and the gentleman finally just left. But I just wanted to compliment Sandy on her handling of it. All right.
Well, and I know Dawn sometimes takes heat collecting the ambulance fee.
She does.
And that is one reason I value our employees so much, because they are the ones that face our citizens and collect our taxes and so forth, and sometimes have abuse heaped on them for the decisions that we make. And I so appreciate their.
yeah, we'll raise them, but they collect them. So on that note, is there anything else? All right, we'll move on. Let's go to 4. Nathan, is there anything outside of executive session we can talk about? Any sort of brief one-liner?
Quite frankly, I believe that we can forego discussion on issues. There may be a matter on the Civil Action 18P 132 that I need to discuss with you. And then and then, as you know, I do not serve as your counsel in the Rockwell matter, but counsel, because of just there's not a tremendous amount to report, did not, I didn't ask tonight, but just the fact that that he had pursued that you said you gave him the last time and filed a couple documents. I'm just reporting on that.
Okay, so we're only, sorry, go ahead.
So, and one other thing, and I think I can just say out of executive session about the cable franchise agreement. Our counsel dealing with that issue reported to me that they are entering into some discussions with Comcast right after the first meeting.
All right. I'll make a comment on that. Just during my campaign, one of the issues that came up quite often was the Comcast wouldn't serve a lot of rural people. I just threw that out there. I didn't promise anybody anything, but that could be looked into as part of the negotiations there.
And I'd say that we have had extensive with our not negotiations, discussions there's been a number of issues that have been raised regarding improving service in the county. And so, there are economic realities regarding if an area is very sparsely populated, it's difficult to get some services there because the company cannot realize any kind of return on their investment. But nonetheless, I believe that negotiations hopefully will result in improvement of services in some specific ways that will benefit the county.
Right. So there's only one thing you need to go into.
Yes.
Okay, so number 3. Okay, it's essentially a personnel issue at the JCDA. That's all I can really say. So in that case, I'll move we go into executive session to discuss Jefferson County Development Authority personnel and discuss of Jefferson County Circuit Court Civil Action 18P 132. Second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in executive session.